You guys are on.
All right, right on. All right, welcome everybody to a webinar today with some of my friends from a company named LikelyAI, Artificial Intelligence, and I'm joined today from Brad and Jay. And real quick before I have them introduce themselves, today, if you'd like to ask questions while we're talking live about artificial intelligence, what it is, what it isn't, what LikelyAI does or what they don't do, you're welcome to put them in the chat box below. Lacey's here in my studio right now, so she's going to hand me the questions. We'll do the best we can to get them answered, and we'll also give you a place to go to get them answered afterwards. Also, we'll be able to send you a replay of the video webinar right after we're done, so you'll get that too. So, all right, so Brad and Jay, would you introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about who you are and where you're from?
Of course. Jay, if you don't mind, I'll lead off here. My name is Brad McDaniel. And I'm the CEO of LIKELY.AI. I'm currently in Austin, Texas, but our team is distributed. So thankfully, COVID has not impacted us too much. And Jay?
Hi, I'm Jay Swartz, and I'm located in Colorado, and I'm hanging in there. So we had a house just down the street sell in a day. So things are going good for real estate here. And I'm a data scientist, chief science officer for LikelyAI, with over 30 years of experience in doing things in computing along the lines. And I've been a data scientist for about 15 years now.
Okay, fantastic. So Brad, tell me, like I'm a second grader, because the best 2 years of my life was actually the fourth grade. But like I'm a second grader, what does artificial intelligence mean? What does that mean? I like the term, it sounds sexy, but what does it mean?
It's really an umbrella term that encompasses all those other terms you might have heard, like machine learning or deep learning or various other things. They're all kind of interchangeable underneath this umbrella of AI or artificial intelligence. And what it does, Jay can go into much more detail, but in essence, it takes all of that data that's in the world today and makes sense and actionable things out of it. And it's really the questions that you ask, how you train it is what you get out of it.
Okay, now 10 years ago, realtors really weren't using the term artificial intelligence or AI. I mean, they'd be very, very forward thinking if they were saying it 8 or 10 years ago. In the last 3 years, it's been more and more and more common, artificial intelligence, AI, and even me included. I mean, my real estate sales team sells in 105 or 106 cities across the country, 22 different states. Even for me, like sometimes I use the term and I'm like, I'm not sure what I just said. Like I'm not 100% certain what that even means. So in a nutshell, is this watching what people are doing online, seeing what their behavior is, and then predicting they're more likely or less likely to make a residential real estate move next? Is that one way of saying it?
That is a great way of saying it, Cody.
Okay.
And that is exactly what we do. And we make that prediction within the next 90 days. So we're watching a lot of those, moving pieces that we call signal to identify when someone's going to make that next, whatever we are training that model to predict. In this case, desire to sell.
Got it. Because somebody had shared with me years ago that 82 or 84% of everybody who buys a home buys a new car within 6 months after buying a new home. And I'm not sure if that's, 100% accurate. I mean, you guys would know more than me. Is that an accurate statement? Is that still true today? Am I way off on the number? What do you think about that statement?
Jay, any thoughts on that one?
We could predict that if we wanted to, but that's not what we're up to. So we don't look at the after the fact. Our whole focus is on before the event. So we're trying to predict those homes that are about to go on the market so that our customers can be the first one in the door to approach them because they are moving in the direction of listing their house.
Correct. What's one of the strongest indicators of someone who's likely going to list in the next 3 months online? Like what would be an indicator for you? What are you looking for?
The primary signal is in life events, divorce, marriage, death, all those types of things carry the most signal, but those are difficult to get to because they're personal information. And we try to avoid carrying personal information because it has overhead with it in a variety of ways. So we actually use dozens of different features that come off of several different feeds that we build into, I like to use the analogy of a key. So if you imagine a key and it has all these teeth on it, each data point is a tooth on the key. And what we collect is all these teeth, and we find that which pattern of teeth unlocks this signal of someone about to list. So it's actually a large collection of features. It's not just 2 or 3 features. And actually that's part of the power of machine learning, which is what everybody calls AI, is that it can see the correlations between all those different teeth. And when 2 teeth at the beginning go down and the tooth further along goes up, that's the signal. And so that's really what these algorithms do, except it's way more than a few teeth. These algorithms can deal with hundreds of thousands of teeth. And that's something beyond the skill of humans to deal with, which is why machine learning is so powerful.
Got it. Makes perfect sense. I mean, it's interesting because you said something that I've made a joke of for years and years and years, that there's 3 Ds of real estate sales that cause them. There's death, divorce, the job. Like those 3 things always cause people to move, buy homes, sell homes. Like those are always there. If I'm a real estate agent, Brad, if I'm an agent and I don't want to buy data, I don't want to buy data from somewhere, is there 1 or 2 things that I could look for on my own that I don't have to spend money on that would help predict that analytic? Like what would be 1 or 2 things I could watch without spending a dime?
That's a good question. And, you know, when I first started doing this, I thought that there were some rules of thumb in the industry, like how long they've been there, kind of life stage, some things that you can go and get, you know, just maybe time since last sold. What we found is that, yes, you can do that. And you can filter that down to kind of who you like to target. So maybe it's an age or a type of property, kind of whoever you connect with, what your brand is associated with and who you close deals with. But when you pull back out on a national stage, what it really is it's defined by market. And so when we look at all the different features that we could pull from in order to train a model by county, we find that different features are pulled by different parts of the country. So think of in California, you know, you don't have cellars, you don't have basements. In Denver, Colorado, where Jay is, you have basements. You know, when you're in the desert, you don't really care about, you know, maybe a water view or this or that, but you do if you are on the coastal, or if you're up in Maine, you have, you know, your heating systems are oil rather than electric. If you're in Maricopa County, Arizona. So like there's such a variety of geographic components that all build into, when it comes down to it, it's a local micro market kind of decision matrix that the individual agent there can go and say, hey, I think the best thing, if you don't want to spend any money, I love that. I come from a real estate family. I know how many bills agents have today. I would say look at your past, who you've transacted with, try to find some signal, some common thread through there, whether or not it's an age or type of property or price point. Some of these things I'm sure a lot of you are already doing, but that would be the free way to kind of look at who do you connect with, and then that'll help you identify who you should spend money going after.
Right. I get it. It makes sense. Now, what I didn't say in the beginning that I should have was, for anybody who wants to look at the product that you offer or the service that you sell, where would they go to get more information? And we'll go right back to our conversation, but where would they go?
Sure. Thank you, Cody. So if you go to LIKELY.AI, that's LIKELY.AI. A lot of people hit .com, and that's actually like a social media thing. It's kind of funny. But that's where you can read a little bit more about us. And a little bit later on, we'll be talking about a new product that we'll also be releasing that I'm sure your group would love to hear about.
Okay, fantastic. Now, tell me what's the smartest question that a realtor could ask when it comes to artificial intelligence?
The smartest question that a realtor could ask, the ones that I've gotten that have always stumped me are people that really know data. They start talking about details about timelines and how fresh data is. I think that's one of the biggest components that we still assume that data is organized and is delivered on time. But in reality, it's slow, it's very dirty. It's coming from 3,142 different municipalities. So it's all over the place, and there is really no one single truth. So people that, and when the agent asks about artificial intelligence, they should do two things. Ask, how timely is the data and the source of the data? Kind of those go together. And the second piece would be, what is your single factor of focus when you're looking at artificial intelligence? And what that means, a single factor of focus is, are you looking at precision, Cody, what we would call accuracy? I'm going to give you 100 of these. How many of them are true, are good? And then recall, it's the second piece, which is, hey, there was 1,000 transactions. How many did you predict correctly? Share of market, right? And so usually when I talk to people and they oh, we've tried other services or this, that, I said, well, what was their precision or what was their recall? And they're like, man, you know what? They never gave me a straight answer on those things. And that was one of the things that kind of started to bug me, is that when I got a patent for this back in 2013, I watched the industry continue to mature out this kind of phase one of artificial intelligence in real estate. And I wanted this tool to kind of grow, but I saw
I've got two questions. I don't mean to interrupt, but I got two questions I want to ask before I forget. The first one, and I know you come from a real estate background, so like you get it. You get what it's like to live in a home that sells homes for a living. Mm-hmm. At what point in my real estate career should I go, hey, I should incorporate or use artificial intelligence? Like at what point is there a trigger that you go, you know what? This realtor should probably start using AI somewhere in their business?
That's an excellent question. I think it's really simple. I was talking to someone back in New York, and they advised me that when someone hits 24 deals in a year, that's when they become a true professional. Like that's when they're really working it. They're in their market. That's when they're looking for those tools to grow. And a lot of times they hit that wall where, man, do I join a team? Can I do it by myself? And so it's really that point when they're looking for force multipliers. And I would say, look at artificial intelligence as a force multiplier, allowing you to do more with the resources that you already have. And as you're successful, the one thing you do have more of is a little bit more capital. So invest that capital wisely into systems that allow you to sell even more without having to bring the overhead on maybe multiple teammates, maybe just an admin or just a marketing admin. So sure. That's kind of that point.
Okay, great answer. My second question is AI more predictable and more accurate on the seller side or the buyer side of our business?
I would say that on the buyer side. And Jay, if you have any comments, please. I do not want to talk over you because Jay is the smartest person in this room.
There's two sales guys and one data scientist. So from the data scientist, like is AI more predictable or more accurate on I'm going to sell my home or I'm going to buy a home? Which one's easier to predict?
They're equally challenging in different ways and means. And really what it comes down to is, what is the AI you're using been taught? So part of what goes into machine learning solutions, AI, is the training data. So whatever you train it with is whatever yields your good results. So if you aim it at one side or the other, you can make it perform on either side once you get the right data.
Does your company do both or just one?
I'll defer to Brad on that.
Well, if you do one correctly, you can get both. And I believe that portals have done a fantastic job. They own the buyer market. It's real estate porn, click on all the good pictures, like you love it. But
just to make sure that I'm clear, when you say the portals, do you mean like shop for homes online and see all the homes available in your market? Like, is that what you mean by portal?
Yeah. Yes, okay. Cody. Or even the agent's website, wherever they can see the big beautiful pictures.
Yep. Which is all just data feeds. All just data feeds from the MLSs. Yep. Shop all homes, see all the pictures. Okay, so what you're saying though, you said something that's really smart. You said if you get one, you can get the other. So tell me what you mean by that.
What I mean by that is when you get the listing, you then own the digital real estate space for branding for free. You don't have to buy the advertising space. Yet getting the listing is also the hardest thing to do because there is no way to do it accurately through a PPC or through, a portal play, Zillow, Realtor, you name it. So that's why we focused on the listing side, looking at it as the cornerstone to the arch. Once you capture that, it leads to all other things of the buyer journey, of the seller journey who becomes a buyer.
Got it. I get that. Yep. Get one, get the other. So that's no different. That's no different than how we looked at real estate 15 years ago or 20 years ago. Of the seller is still the twofer because the seller is selling and buying. The buyer's a one-fer, which is I'm buying. They might be selling, but they're probably just buying, or they might know someone. So yes, so more likely than not, you're going to get two sides. But you had mentioned something I want to circle back to. You had said something about accuracy. Do you know the accuracy of what your company provides? Likely, like what's the likelihood or what's the accuracy? And then you mentioned something about going back and basically proving what you said was going to happen actually happened. And you called that was that return?
So recall. So
Oh,
our
okay.
single factor of focus is precision, which is that accuracy piece, right? And what we gauge ourselves on is precision, and then how that translates to better than random. So precision is, 1 out of every 10 of our predictions on average naturally are true within or list within the first 90 days. Now that prediction continues to mature out, and we see it even out to 180 days, going out to 1 in 4 or even less than that. So it's a highly packed group of people that are going to take an action. In this case,
So 1 in 10 in 90 days and 1 in 4 in 6 months.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. And then when you look at recall, that's what we've seen other people initially do in the industry is they focus on recall. Why? Because recall means, hey, if you have like an 80 or 90% recall, it means that you got 80% of all listings. Well, in the e-commerce world, that's what you want because email is free almost. So, email everybody and that's 80% of the gig. In real estate, there's actually a high cost per contact. And so when you talk to someone and they go, oh yeah, we get 80 or 90%, heck, we got that model. We just don't sell it because we don't think it's viable, right? Because if you're going to send out postcards to, 60% of the area, why even buy the service? Just, mail to your neighborhoods. That'd be just as effective.
Yeah,
it's worse than random. And so ours is about anywhere from 5 to 8 to 1,000+% better than random, depending on the market and time of year. But that's what we're able to deliver is if you want a high return on whatever medium you choose to use, like that is our goal, rather than trying to sell you a market automation platform.
Yeah, I got it. Jay, are there certain cities or states that it is just harder to predict in? Like, are there certain cities or states that you go, you know what, we really struggle here or here for whatever reason?
That's a good question, and you're spot on. There is high variability in the MLSs around the country. And we find that some MLSs don't provide accurate data in a consistent way, whereas others do. So I don't have any particular counties, and they tend to move around a little bit too. But generally speaking, there are performing ones and underperforming ones, and that's part of the dance we do is can we, a client asks for a county, if it's an underperforming county, we just have to say, no, we don't see the data coming off of that county sufficient for us to do a good prediction. And so
is density a predictor? Like if I said, listen, I'm gonna go to Chicago, Illinois, high density, that's gonna give me great AI compared to the middle of nowhere, Kansas.
Nope, I don't see any factor in that regard. It's much more about the data streams, reliability and consistency. So if the MLSs are reporting accurately and we can get the demographic data package accurately and the other feeds for that county, we can do excellent predictions. Some of our top performing counties are great, but we do have other counties that are just not giving us the data necessary to do a good prediction.
Interesting. All right. I would have just assumed that high density would be the easiest one to find artificial intelligence.
Well, no, Cody, what density does bring is it brings higher quantity, right? So if you're in a county, which there's a, out of the top, 1,000 counties, you have a good couple hundred that have 10,000 or less properties that we define as a single family or condo in them. And in those areas, yeah, you can have a much lower quantity of good predictions. Now you took Chicago, that's Cook County. That county is absolutely amazing. And we slice and dice it. So if you want to go after condos versus single family or both, we have all three of those options for clients to go after. And you just picked Cook County, happens to be one of our top performers since we started. And there's really, as Jay said, it's hard to say this is why versus that. And we've tried a lot of different ways to look at it.
What's happened during COVID? What's different in your world during COVID the last 7 weeks or 8 weeks from before COVID? Has it changed? Is it different? What do you think it means?
I think there's two pieces of it. Jay, I'm going to take the first one and then turn over to you to take the second bit. I would say that the first thing we started looking at is watching how our models were performing and the changes that we saw. And when we broke it down to state or then to individual county, we saw a lot of variability in how they were performing. And there was a lot of correlation with whether or not there was a shelter in place, when it was, what kind of the requirements around it. There were some markets that had almost no impact. Others had a much larger impact. And because of that, we've started to look for ways to incorporate this COVID impact, or think of it as a disaster impact, right? A black swan impact. And how does that, not just for now, but how can we build something that's smart that allows us to take advantage of that intelligence for future, like a hurricane or flood or big major fire or tornadoes, you name it. How do we layer that in more effectively? So we took the opportunity to build some fun things during the COVID break, as we call it. Jay, please add on to that.
Yep. Is there more activity or less activity that you're finding analytics around since shelter in place or since COVID?
Less.
Yeah.
So it's less. It's harder for you to make predictions today than before COVID. Is that another way of saying it?
No, it's actually just the quantity of our true predictions are tracking very closely to the quantity of new MLS listings. So, in areas, if there's less listings because of shelter in place, you can't show homes, we see a dip in our quantity of predictions and overall quantity of true predictions.
Okay.
Right. And if you remember that those teeth in the key, COVID, we actually built over the last few weeks several new teeth on that key that are specific about COVID. So it's, are you in a job that is highly impacted? Like if you do anything in a cruise line setting, guess what? The chances are higher that you're going to have a financial problem and be compelled to sell.
Jay, that was my next question. So how does unemployment relate to what you're predicting? And is that one of the keys on the teeth, if you will, of listen, this job sector, this area, I guess I'll ask it like a fourth grader. Does unemployment have to do anything with analytics for what you guys are looking at?
Yes, it does. So unemployment rates, and as Brad talked about, what policy is in place for COVID, and that varies widely. So, and it's pulling those pieces together. So if you're, say you're an at-risk individual, so if the owner is over 65, okay, that means they are more likely to be impacted by COVID should it visit them. If they're in a county that has a huge surge, that tooth of the key gets a little bigger because it's more significant. If they're in a county where no one's getting it, the size of that tooth is much smaller. It's less influential.
What about mortgage defaults? Do mortgage defaults play a role in the AI that you pull?
That's another factor as well. Again, we have hundreds of different values, and I wouldn't be able to say, or don't need to say that which one is more important than the other. It's really the combination of things. So,
so I keep trying to find a smoking gun, and you're telling me there's no smoking gun. Like there's no one thing. It's like if they do this, then there's a 92% chance they're going to sell.
Hey, Cody, I'll say it to you like this. When we started this, we thought we'd find that smoking gun, that there would be that.
I want you to tell me what the hell it is. Like, give me the smoking gun.
And so I'm trying to answer you. It's like, I thought there was a silver bullet. And in reality, there's certain times when you just have to use lead. That's all it is that you can't always kill something with a single shot. You have to go about it the old fashioned way. And that's what we found with the data. It just is the reality of how it works.
Yeah, well, and that's the key, is the variability. So it depends on a combination of things. If you have $1 million in the bank and lose your job, you're not going to bother to sell your house. If you have $10 in the bank and lose your job, you're going to sell your house. it's those kinds of comparisons that machine learning can find. And those are obvious ones, but there's much more subtle ones where it depends on where you are.
Can you pull, or do you have any eyeballs into generic net worth?
Yes. And household income and individual income. And if you apply for a payday loan or credit consolidation I mean, we go to the point of where we leave PII or personally identifiable information out because we're approved by major banks to be a provider, right? So we have to stay away. We don't want your social security number. It's a string of numbers. It doesn't do anything for us, right? But we do go down to the level of the individual of the property. We do not use demographic data at a zip code or county level.
Pause real quick. You used an acronym that I want to make sure that everybody understands because it's something that's super clear in your industry, but it's not in mine. It was PI something.
PII, personally identifiable information. So it's like your last name plus the last 4 digits of a credit card, a social security number. It's how it's stored and held together. If you can say with these 2 things, I know that that's Cody Gibson without having Cody Gibson's full name or anything else, that becomes a way that hackers can go and get a bunch of your bad.
Hang on a second. Hang on. Do you even need my social number?
Well, let's put it this way. Facebook only asks for 12 data points to identify your profile if you don't give them your profile. So there's plenty of ways trying to triangulate who you are through data that's out there.
Yep. Statistically, you only need 9 data points to identify somebody, and they're pretty common and seemingly innocuous data points.
What should I be worried about, Jay? Like, now I'm just going to go hard left turn because now I'm scared a little bit. What should I be worried about? Like, what's the most? I'm like,
I wouldn't worry about anything.
I had to send my social the other day, and I was like, whoa, hang on a second. Like, what should I be worried about?
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. Again, I'm pragmatic in nature. The odds of someone targeting you or me or somebody, in the sea of millions of people with this data is pretty low, unless I do something dumb and expose my full social security number or something like that. But assembling these pieces just means with enough data, and I would argue that pretty much any data scientist, given those 9 features, can identify who owns the house exactly. But as Brad was saying, we don't want that. We don't even want to go there because that crosses a line that causes all sorts of other issues. So we purposely avoid getting into that box if we can. So, but now, in general, I wouldn't worry a whole lot about it because part of what's happening is, whether people realize it or not, every one of us is using a ton of AI every day. Anytime you open your mailbox, and if you go back 15 years, remember all the princes from Nigeria that would show up in your mailbox and things like that. That's all gone. That's AI. And isn't it much nicer to go to Amazon and have it show you the things you care about and not show you all sorts of crap that you don't really want to see? That's AI. So on balance, I would say AI is a vastly improving technology. It can be used for bad purposes, and it's like anything else. You can use good stuff for bad things, but fortunately, the vast majority of people use this stuff for good things.
So somebody mentioned on another webinar that I was doing, they made the comment. They said, I mean, number one, nobody knows how much COVID will or won't affect local real estate markets. Nobody knows how much or it will affect real estate pricing. So anybody who's running around out there saying, I know this, is guessing or is a liar. Like, nobody knows, right? We're going to all know in a year or two. But I will ask this question because I thought it was a smart point. They said, Cody, one of the things that's interesting is that in 2008, there wasn't a whole lot of equity in homes. But today, there's a whole lot of equity in homes. So when it comes to AI, do you look at, and is that one of the data points, is home equity a big piece that you pull?
Absolutely. It's one of the teeth on the key. It's not the sole thing. That's not the only determinant. Life events are much more important than financial standing. But
can you see loan forbearances?
So servicers see loan forbearance. That's not public. So if you're working with a large corporation that services, then you'd be able to access that type of data. Otherwise, there's no way to get that legally. So you'd be buying that with Bitcoin, some crazy place. So who knows how good it is? We stay far away from anything like that. Everything's above board. So something that you said, wanted to just comment on about how, there are things that happen before and after that are indicative of someone taking another action, like selling their home. Kind of just some fun facts for everyone. We know that if your credit card bill, your fast food bill goes up 3x over a 2-month period, you're selling your home. Why? Because you don't want to cook in your kitchen anymore, right?
What? Are you kidding? Stop it. Are you kidding me right now?
No, these are all well-documented things. It's the same way how during major presidential runs, if you go to Safeway or whatever and always use a little coupon code, they're tracking what you're buying. And so they know that if you buy steak and wine versus peanut butter and beer, target these for Democrats, these for Republicans. Like they make those inferences, and it's like the second order, right? It's second order effect. It's like Google bought Fitbit, not because they really want to get in the health industry, it's because they know that if they track your gait correctly, that you're going to need a hip replacement in the future, and they can sell that to a doctor. So you have to be thinking about not the individual, but the next level down.
Yeah, the key is, the concept here in the data science space is reflective information. So you don't have the data that they're going into forbearance or something like that, but you have other factors. Their interest rate is this, they're behind on a payment, or they're, a variety of other data that put together reflects that they're heading there.
So one of the things I did when I sold homes myself full-time was that I would go and I would pull default lists, people that had notice of default, NODs, right? And I would call them and just ask them, how are you doing? Like, I wouldn't say, hey, everybody, I saw you on the notice of default. Looks like times are hard. Like, that's a bad script. Don't do that. But I would just call and play dumb, which has always been a really easy play for me. But notice of defaults, does that play into the AI? I mean, I don't even know if that's artificial, but I mean,
notice of defaults, list pendings, any of those like official, notices that you're in the foreclosure process. Of course, we also know, who it's against, how much it's for, when it's going to the courthouse. And then we also have logic built in to scrub those out as soon as there's some type of transfer of ownership. So those don't persist in our data set.
What about like I know when somebody, I like to say that I've been to lots of weddings, they're usually mine. But what about when somebody files for divorce, like from the time of filing to it actually being done can be months and months and months. Does that play into any of the AI that you use? Like, all right, if these guys are probably talking about it, it's probably on the horizon. So Jay, I see you shaking your head. How do we?
Well, the technique we're using is we go back several years and build our models there in that time frame. And so we have the data from years ago, and then that means we also have the data from after that to measure how good our model does back then. And then we roll our model forward so that when we're predicting today and can't see the future, we know our model does good at predicting the future. So that's
Jay, how hard would it be for me as an agent to do what you guys are doing?
If you know your data science, it'd take you a few years, but you can do it.
I went to the 4th grade twice. How hard would it be? I mean, you lost me at data and you definitely lost me at scientist. And then you said something about it taking a few years. And I was like, to hell with you. Like, I'm not doing it. So that's, I mean, this is.
Well, just to give you a sense of how hard this stuff is, I spent 4 years training IBM Watson on how to be an intelligent agent for insurance companies. And it took me 4 years to get that thing to behave at 97% accuracy. I started at 3% accuracy. So part of what we are doing is we're several years down the road of having thought through this problem and dealing with it. So we have a leg up. So if you're talking to somebody who hasn't had that, doesn't have that many years behind them, guess what? They're probably not doing as well on sorting out how to make this all work.
I've got two questions. My first is before I go to the predictive piece. We've had one person or a couple mention you guys aren't just a couple of good guys who like helping the industry, though you like helping the industry. Brad, what does it cost if somebody wants to use your service?
Thank you for the question. So we set it up. If you're a real estate agent and you're looking for listings, we limit the number of licenses we open up in a county. We ask for a low monthly license fee, unlike others that charge tens of thousands or more up front. But then we also ask for a 10% referral fee on deals you close using our intelligence. Because of my years growing up in the industry, I saw there's the boom and bust. I remembered folding the envelopes with my dad on Blockbuster movie nights on Friday night and doing the tri-folding stuff and holding up. And I was like, there's a lot to do. So rather than try to take advantage of the industry, we wanted to align ourselves, and we're looking for the best partners in every county. So it's a couple $100 a month on a license fee. That from our standpoint, that's a loss. Our P&L in any given county is in the red at that point.
I was going to ask you where the bulk of your income comes from. Does it come from the referral fee or does it come from the licensing fee?
The referral fee is where that's the bulk. It's a long tail, but it's a fat long tail if you have the right clientele. And so rather than trying to sign up everybody, we look for high performing teams that have the infrastructure, and they're just looking for better ways to apply that infrastructure locally in that brand. So we partner with you, say, hey, we've done the predictions, help us turn these into commissions and give us a 10% referral fee on it.
Got it. So I mean, as a real estate agent, like I've done this my entire adult life. I'm real good. Like I can justify anything based on, I'm going to pay this out if it works. I'm going to pay this out when it works. Like I'm cool there. So I like that. And for everybody watching, this was, you'll notice I don't put very many of my vendor partners or partners online very often, and definitely not for this long. I just choose the ones that I personally work with. So yes, I use Likely. Yes, it's been a great service for me. My other question is this: is there a difference? Or am I just a fool between artificial intelligence and predictive analytics? Is that a universal statement, or are those two different statements?
I'll let Jay take that one.
Yeah, predictive analytics today is rapidly becoming machine learning. I mean, the old methodology was based on statistics. That's predictive analytics, and it's very good. Surprising number of problems can be solved with a simple logistic regression model. And so it's dominated. With the advent of machine learning, think of that, the old models would have maybe 4 or 5 or maybe up to 30 teeth in the key to do its statistical thing. With machine learning gives you hundreds, if not thousands or even more if you design neural net systems, which is on our horizon. We're going to move to neural net systems as soon as we have enough information built up in our war chest. We're at 7.5 gigabytes of information, which is about what you need to drive one of these big neural network models. So we're right on the edge of starting to move in that direction. We're using a middle ground modeling that is performing pretty well.
All right, interesting. So I know we only have about 5 or 6 minutes left. Brad, do you have any numbers or analytics or stories about XYZ agent who started using your service and sold 22 more homes that year, or 9 more listings, or like, I'm always that guy. It's like, talking to you guys is almost like reading a Malcolm Gladwell book where I'm like, dude, I got it. Like, you gave me 200 pages of statistics and all I needed was for you to say it works. And I'm like, cool, I'm in. So tell me about that. Do you have anybody that you've worked with that you're like, hey, their business did this or this or this?
Yeah. So when you and I met, when I met Cody, for everyone else here, was when we got asked to pitch in Las Vegas at the Future Conference. We went on to win the artificial intelligence category, voted by 60,000 or some large number in the audience.
Yes.
From that, we brought on a huge cohort of fantastic clients. And so they were on for about a month and a half until COVID started to take effect. And so during that time, we started getting a ton of great testimonials. Like, we have a client in Boston who sent out 200 hand-addressed post envelopes like this. You know, they're hand addressed. I had to actually call the CEO to make sure that for 99 cents, I'm like, there's no way you're actually hand addressing these. As long as it's not like, you know,
Right.
child Malaysian slave labor, I'm all addressed. Anyways, she got over a 10% response rate in the first 2 weeks. She got her first listing. She had 13 other CMAs. She was just called me and said, hey, I don't know what you did, but I had to stop other things. Like my team couldn't even like handle the inbound from what you did. We have a client in Santa Barbara, California, who they were bringing on an ISA, inside sales agent, kind of training them how to call out. And on that first training call, they got their first listing appointment. And he said, he's like, dude, this used to be a lot harder. What do you guys do? I would say that on a whole, there's no magic to how you get in touch with these people, or not how you get in touch, but like the message that you bring. It's who you bring it to and when you bring it to them.
So Brad, I do want to ask this. So like if I sign up for your service and you hand me a bunch of data and you say, hey, these addresses, these names, what do I see? Do I see addresses? Do I see names? Do I see phone numbers? Like, what do I see if you say these are more likely than not?
Yes, so we deliver a lot more than a name and an address, maybe an email address. We have well over 126 million landlines, 49 million cells, 58 million emails. We have a ton of information on contact-wise. So what we do is we give you over 128 data points on every property. Now that's a lot of data when you kind of take a step back. It's going to be a very wide sheet. So it
seems like almost too much when you say that. I'm like, oh my God,
what do you do?
Yeah. What do I do? So that's my second question is, if I have your service, do you say, here's the stuff, or do you also say, here's what we suggest you do with the stuff?
Great question. So two things is first, in May, we're launching our intelligence as a service portal. So now our clients, rather than getting this large file and having to spend time on it, they're going to be able to log in and say, these are the counties that I want to start a campaign with, and I want a Facebook campaign or a calling campaign. And we've predefined schemas, a set of fields that export. So you don't have to do any work. All the phone numbers are there if you're going to load it into a XXX or a Mojo. It's all the emails are there if you're going to put it into whatever email system you're using. So we've taken a lot of that friction out of leveraging the intelligence away. So that's A. And then B, we provide a lot of content and continue to build that content library and script library on our Facebook page. We're doing videos on YouTube. We have people that are writing things, and we're starting to put out some ebooks here coming shortly. So yes, part of what our business is, because we want to align ourselves, is pass on best practices, things learned from other clients that are using something that's unique, that actually is a very small set of the market. So
when I sign up for the service, do I commit to a certain number of months or a certain number of quarters, or how does that work? Like, what's my commitment level?
Yeah, that's perfect. So we don't like to do a long commitment, but we need long enough for both us to vet the potential partner, that their systems are in place, and for them to be able to vet us that our data is any good and fits their business model. So we ask for a 6-month initial commitment, which we find is just long enough. We tried 3 months, 4 months, we tried 7 months, 6 months, even though it's generic, happens to be the magic number that allows both sides to vet if this is a good fit.
Now, you had shared with me, because you and I met in Vegas, and then we were at another conference in New York together, and you had shared with me there that there was a handful of users that you were having to go back to say, basically, quit using me, because you're buying the data from me, but you're not doing anything with it, and you're not selling anything. You're just buying it and then not even doing anything. And the money that I got to make is in the referral fee. So you're actually going back to users and saying, hey, love you, but I don't need your couple $100 every month. I need you actually selling homes.
That's exactly it. I mean, in the short term, yes, it helps us cover some server expenses and data expenses, that license fee. But from a business model, we need you selling. We need you producing listings and closings. And so if you're not doing that, there is that point where we got to say, hey guys, I don't think this is a good fit. It's not you, it's me conversation. But I mean, in all honesty, coming from the real estate industry, I don't want to take money from someone if it's not effective for them. Because
it's not enough. Even if I paid you $200 a month, that's only $2,500 a year. That's not enough it doesn't do anything. It doesn't move the needle anywhere. Like it's not gonna pay for people like Jay to have a bazillion data points. Like it's not enough money.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of users, but you actually limit the amount of users you'll drop into a certain geographic area. where you're like, listen, in this city or this state or this county, I'm cool with this many people or this many people.
Yep, that's exactly it. We look at the density of the market and also the other dynamics like the types of properties, price points, geography, how big it is, and limit the amount of overlap. So that way we maximize the value to each one of our partners in any market.
Good. All right. Well, I know we're right at the end of the time that we have, and you guys have been amazing. Is there anything, what question should I have asked about artificial intelligence or sellers who are selling right now? Like what, I tried to be a good host, but what question didn't I ask that I should have?
Thank you. The question that you didn't ask is, are we doing anything right now? What are we doing right now to help our clients or new clients get more listings during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Mm-hmm.
And we are. You can go to likely.ai/COVID-19, so COVID-19. And what you'll find there is something that we're launching today. So Cody, we didn't talk before, but we wanted to kind of do it with you, is that what this is we've taken all of these engineered features that we've been developing around COVID and said, wait a second, there's a product here for people that want to connect directly with individual properties that are being impacted both from a financial standpoint or from a medical standpoint by COVID-19. And so what we're doing is we're scoring all the properties in every county by their risk, at-risk level by COVID, and then delivering in a package with all the data points you could think without going overboard, the top 1,000 most impacted properties within every county for a flat fee. We're not asking for anything on the back end. We're just saying, hey, we built this amazing asset. How can we help the industry right now? Okay, well, let's make something kind of cheap, but that would take a lot of effort to duplicate and get it out there. Let agents get out there and help.
Effort that I would never put in. Like it'd be interesting to have it and I could do something with it, but I wouldn't even know where to begin to find it. And so we would get that by going to likely.ai/ and Lacey, you put that in the feed already, right? Okay, great. So we have that. Jay is the data scientist. Like I feel like I'm way out punted my coverage even talking to you, but what question should I have asked that I didn't?
Really, you covered it pretty well, at this level. I mean, there's lots of deeper questions that might be asked. And I would think are we seeing that COVID-19 is radically changing the nature of the real estate industry? And I would say at this juncture, I don't think so, largely because the factors that require people to list aren't any different. It's just COVID-19's around. That's one of the many teeth on the key. So I would say that from an AI perspective, it's probably not going to change that much. And if you've got the right data, you'll know how much it's going to change and where it's going to change.
Interesting. All right. So I had one other question, Brad. If I had, I understand buying AI data from your organization. I get that, and I already do it. So I'm cool there. But if I had a database, if I had a database of 3,000 people that I've bought homes with and sold homes with, and they're the people that I'm constantly calling and how are you doing and my care calls and all that stuff. If I have that database of 2,000 or 3,000 people, is there anything that I could run them through or do with them that would give me any predictability just in that Excel spreadsheet of 2,500 people?
Yes, we were actually doing that for a couple of enterprise clients over the last couple of years. They had 27,000. They would send it to us. We haven't, kind of taken that to where it's automated because we haven't seen the demand. But we technically have been doing it for the last 2 years.
Interesting.
And so
it might be something that in the future an agent could say, hey, here's my 1,700 people that I've been talking to for 6 years. Run them through XYZ filter and tell me, 1 through 1,200, which one I should call first.
Exactly. And so that's what we were doing, and we'd be happy to make that available. If you're hearing a lot of that, demand, kind of, hey, let's refresh our database and let's get back out there and let's do it smart. We could definitely stand that service up. It'd probably take a couple of weeks.
So Lacey, would you make this is where if you're watching this, you get to see how real life plays out, right? So Lacey, would you make an appointment with Brad and I? Let's flesh this out together. Like I mean, as I travel and teach and I'm in front of agents all day, every day, and it's all I do, like how incredible would it be for us, you know, not just to buy generic data, but like, listen, here's my 2,400 people that I've got in XYZ CRM. Hey guys, run this through and tell me which ones I should call. Otherwise, we're just, I mean, good Lord, that could be an incredible service.
Yep.
That could be cool.
I would love, we've had a spec from how we would take that to market. I would love to get your feedback on it, Cody. And so we kind of refine that because we kind of had it on an enterprise level, but I know that the requirements will have to be easy to operate and easy to access, which we have some, I think, good ideas on, but love to get, you know, kind of mastermind with you to put a ribbon on that package.
Yeah, we could figure out what the result might be. And then someone like Jay says, all right, here's how we actually get there. Like these are the teeth we would need. That would be cool. That everybody who's watching that, even if you took nothing else, that might be the one thing that we could all use. So in synopsis, real quick, how does somebody communicate with you guys if they want to have more information or maybe get a demo of what it looks like? Like they just go to the website or what?
Yeah, I mean, we recommend going to the LIKELY.AI and you can go and contact us there. You can also email us at moredeals@LIKELY.AI. You know, it's usually better to go through the site just so we can capture a little bit more information. We can kind of come back more prepared to have a good conversation with you.
Now, we didn't talk about this, so I'll apologize in advance, but we've met, so you can't act surprised. If someone comes to you through this, I don't make anything, but do you have any special red carpet for them?
We do, Cody. So we've been through this before at New York. I'm prepared this time.
Right, yeah. I asked you in front of everybody then, and you're like, yeah, we can do that. And someone called me right afterwards and said, you can't ask them that. And I said, well, I did.
So what we have is on the LIKELY.AI COVID/COVID19. If you enter a discount code of Gibson, you get 25% off your order.
Ah, fantastic. Thank you. Now, by the way, just to keep everything completely above board and honest, if they get a 25% discount, everyone who's watching, I don't get a penny of that. That doesn't come to me.
There's no deal for any type of reciprocal thing. It's purely because, you know, we work with Cody and we appreciate his business and giving us a platform to come and talk. And so we offer that as the people that follow Cody are high quality, are the type of clients we want. So it's an easy business decision to make.
No, thank you guys. All right. So LIKELY.AI, that's the easiest place to communicate. Hope you guys are safe and enjoying all that social distancing is providing.
Thank you. Likewise, Cody. And thank you to everyone for listening to us. We look forward to having conversations with all of you.
Awesome. And Brad and Jay, let's get this conversation. Like Lacey will hit you guys both up for a calendar invite, but let's flesh this out. I mean, it could go nowhere, but that could be a home run for everyone.
Good. I look forward to it.
Guys. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.